If you save your first $100,000, it will change your life. Not because $100,000 makes you rich, but because it changes how reality treats you. It changes your options. It changes your risk tolerance. It changes the games you're allowed to play. And most importantly, saving $100,000 proves something most people never prove. That you can build a system strong enough to defeat your impulses, your environment, and the endless invitations to spend. Here's the part people don't want to hear. $100,000 is not a number. It's a psychological regime change. Once you cross it, your money stops feeling like something that disappears and starts feeling like something that can generate outcomes. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why $100,000 mattered using the mindset of a macro investor. Fallibility. You will be wrong sometimes. Reflexivity. Belief changes behavior, behavior changes outcomes, and optionality. The most valuable asset is the ability to choose. And stay until the end of this episode, because I'll give you a simple framework I call the 100K Flywheel. 3 levers that make 100K inevitable for normal people, not just high earners. Welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is called Save Your First $100,000. It will change your life. Quick disclaimer. This is educational content, not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor, and I don't know your personal situation. Use this as a framework and adapt responsibly. Now you might be thinking, why $100,000? Why not $10,000? Why not $1 million? Because $100,000 is the first number where your financial system becomes real. It's big enough to create genuine stability. It's big enough to generate meaningful compounding. It's big enough to buy time, time to think, time to pivot, time to negotiate from strength. And it's also the milestone where the majority of people either level up permanently or self-sabotage and reset. So today we're going to make sure you land on the first path. Most people assume saving 100K is just math. Earn more, spend less. Wait, that's the surface story. The real story is this. Saving 100K is a battle against reflexivity in your own life. When your income rises, your lifestyle tries to rise with it. When your savings grows, your confidence rises and you start taking bigger risks. When people around you spend, you feel pressure to spend too. Belief changes behavior. Behavior changes outcomes. So if you want 100K, you don't need motivation. You need a system that prevents the most common failure modes. Lifestyle inflation, emotional spending, catch-up, risk-taking inconsistency, and the most dangerous one, becoming fragile. Fragility is what keeps people broke, even when they earn good money. Here's today's roadmap. Why $100 changes your life. The psychological regime shift. The 3 reasons most people never reach 100K. The 100K flywheel, the practical system. A realistic timeline model. Fast, medium, slow. What determines each? The traps, right before 100K. Why people reset at 70 to 90%. A 30 to 60 to 90 day plan you can start immediately. And I'll be direct. This episode is not about fantasy. It's about engineering a life with margin of safety. Because in finance and in life, survival is the first skill. In a few minutes, I'm going to give you the 100K flywheel. It's 3 levers, simple, boring, and brutally effective. If you apply them consistently, 100K becomes less like a dream and more like the natural output of your system. But before we build the flywheel, we need to understand why this number changes people. Because once you understand that, you stop treating 100K like a savings goal and start treating it like a gateway. Alright, part 2 is where we go deep. Why $100,000 changes your life. Not in theory, but in how you behave, how others treat you, and how your future options expand. Let's go. Let's begin with the most important idea. $100,000 changes your life because it changes your position in the world. Not your Instagram. Your position. It moves you from fragility to optionality. And optionality, more than returns, more than predictions, is the closest thing finance has to freedom. When people talk about money, they often talk about wealth. But $100 is not wealth. It is stability with leverage. Here are 4 life changes that happen when you reach it. When you're broke, the world can force you into bad choices. You can't quit a toxic job. You can't negotiate. You can't say no. You can't take time to learn. You can't wait for a better opportunity. Broke people don't choose. They react. The first on 100K begins to remove the urgency. It buys time, and time buys better decisions. That's the first regime shift. Less panic, fewer mistakes, faster progress. Before 100K, most risk is emotional. It's the kind of risk that comes from pressure. I need a quick win. I'm behind. If I don't do something now, I'll never catch up. That is not calculated risk. That is desperation. After 100K, you can take a different kind of risk. Risk to build skills. Risk to start a business. Risk to change roles. Risk to invest for the long term without panicking. In other words, 100K converts risk from survival to strategy. And that is everything. When you have very little savings, money is always emotional. A bill arrives and you feel it in your chest. A small emergency feels like a disaster. A bad month feels like the end. With 100K, money starts behaving differently in your mind. It becomes a buffer, a planning tool, a system component. You stop waking up with financial anxiety as your default. And when anxiety drops, your performance improves. That creates a reflexive loop. Less stress, better focus, higher income, higher savings, even less stress. That's reflexivity in your favor. People misunderstand compounding. They think compounding is only stocks. Compounding is broader. Skill, compounding reputation, compounding relationship, compounding income, compounding portfolio, compounding religion. But portfolio compounding does have a threshold where it starts to feel real. With $5,000 saved, the 10% gain is $500. Nice, but it doesn't change your month. With $100,000 saved, 10% is $10,000. Now it's a meaningful number. This is not about becoming rich from returns. It's about reaching a size where compounding becomes psychologically visible. Visible progress is motivating. Motivation increases consistency. Consistency increases compounding. Again, reflexivity. Now let's add the professional framework. George Soros is known for the idea of fallibility. Humans are often wrong. In investing, being wrong is normal. The goal is not to never be wrong. The goal is to survive being wrong. That's why I value 100K. It becomes your personal margin of safety. It allows you to make mistakes without dying. Because the biggest threat to your financial future is not low returns. It's ruin. Ruin looks like high interest debt plus job loss, no savings, medical expense, forced selling in a downturn, taking a risky bet because you feel trapped. 100K reduces the probability of ruin dramatically if you protect it correctly. Let's talk about the part nobody wants to admit. Your income and spending are not just math, they're identity. People spend for status, belonging, relief, control, the feeling of being ahead. So saving 100K requires an identity shift. You must become the kind of person who can delay gratification without feeling deprived. And that is rare. That's why saving 100K is more impressive than earning $100. Earning can be luck, timing, a good job market. Saving is behavior. Saving means you defeated social pressure, lifestyle temptation, emotional spending, and your own need to prove something. This is why I said earlier, 100K is not a number. It's proof of a system. Two people earn the same amount. Person A raises lifestyle every time income rises. Better apartment, better car, better everything. Person B raises lifestyle slowly, very slowly, and puts the difference into savings and assets. At first, person A looks ahead, person B looks boring. But 5 years later, person A is trapped by fixed costs. Person B has optionality. Person B can switch jobs, move, start a business, invest calmly. Person A cannot. So wealth is not what you can buy. Wealth is what you can refuse. That's the real meaning of $100. Now we need to talk about why most people never reach this milestone. It's usually not because they're stupid. It's because they fall into one of these three traps. Failure mode 1, lifestyle inflation becomes permanent. Fixed costs rise until the gap disappears. They're running hard but not moving. Failure mode 2, inconsistency. They save when they feel good, stop when life feels tight. No automation, no system. Failure mode 3, catch-up risk-taking. They try to speed it up with one big gamble, a concentrated trade, a get-rich-quick asset, leverage. Then they lose time, sometimes years, because the psychological damage is bigger than the dollar loss. The first 100K is not hard because it requires genius. It's hard because it requires stability. Now we're ready for the practical part. In part 3, I'm going to give you the $100 flywheel. 3 levers that make reaching 100K predictable. An income lever, increase input. A gap lever, protect fuel. A compounding lever, make it grow without blowing up. We'll turn it into specific habits, automation rules, and a simple timeline model that tells you whether you're on a 2-year, 5-year, or 10-year path. Because once you can reach 100K once, you can do it again, and that's when your life truly changes. Now we build the machine. I promised you the 100K flywheel, 3 levers that make saving your first $100,000 predictable. Not easy, predictable. Because in finance, the difference between amateurs and professionals is not intelligence, it's systems. Here are the 3 levers. Input lever. Increase income without increasing fragility. Gap lever. Protect and capture the difference. Income minus expenses. Compounding lever. Grow the pile safely while you continue feeding it. When these 3 levers work together, you don't try to save 100K. You simply run the system, and the number becomes inevitable. Let's break them down. A lot of people try to reach 100K by pure discipline, extreme frugality. That can work, but it's fragile. It creates resentment, and resentment creates relapse. The smarter move is to widen the gap from both sides, spend intentionally, and increase income. Here's the rule. Increase income in ways that don't permanently raise fixed costs. Because if income rises and fixed costs rise with it, your gap doesn't change. So the input lever is not make more money. It's make more money while keeping your lifestyle stable. The simplest blueprint, copy this. Pick one high-value skill in your market. Create proof. Ask for more money, or move to where you're paid properly. Add a small side offer if possible. You don't need a perfect plan, you need a 90-day sprint. 90-day income sprint. Weeks 1 to 2, choose skill plus build one proof piece. Weeks 3 to 6, publish proof plus outreach/apply. Weeks 7 to 12, close opportunities, negotiate. Negotiation is part of saving, because every extra $500 per month is not just income, it's fuel for the flywheel. Now we move to the heart of the flywheel. Gap equals income minus expenses. This gap is the fuel that becomes $100. But here is the truth. Most people don't have a saving problem. They have a capture problem. They intend to save, but the money stays in the spending account and disappears. So you need a capture system that removes emotion. The 3-account capture system, stealable. Bills account, rent, debt, essentials. Spending account, guilt-free spending. Wealth account, savings, investments, automatic. The rule, automation happens the day you get paid, not end of month, not whatever is left. Right after income arrives, because if you wait, your brain will spend it. That's reflexivity. A rising balance creates the feeling of permission. So you remove the permission. You make saving invisible. If you want 100K, your enemy is not coffee. Your enemy is fixed costs. Fixed costs are commitments you can't easily reduce. Housing, car payments, debt payments, subscriptions, anything that locks you into a high-burn life. So here's the rule. Keep fixed costs below a level where life shocks can't destroy your plan. I'm not giving a perfect percentage because it varies, but if fixed costs dominate your income, you become fragile. And fragile systems don't reach 100K. They reset. People don't fail at saving because of one big purchase. They fail because of 1,000 small, it's not a big deal choices. Subscriptions, delivery upgrades, convenience, tiny status signals, each one feels harmless. Together, they erase the gap. The flywheel doesn't need perfection. It needs consistency. So instead of hunting every small expense, do this. Cut one big leak. Housing, car, debt, or one recurring habit that's truly expensive. One big move beats 10 small ones. Now the third lever. This is where people sabotage themselves. They reach 20K, 40K, 60K, and then they think, I should speed it up. They start chasing returns, they gamble, they leverage, they concentrate, and then they lose the real prize, momentum. So the compounding lever has one rule. Don't blow up. Your first 100K is not the phase to be clever. It's the phase to be consistent. Because early on, contributions matter more than returns. The boring truth. If you save aggressively, your monthly contributions will often dominate your early growth. That means your strategy should prioritize simplicity, diversification, staying invested, avoiding forced selling. The 3-bucket stability structure. Simple. Now money, 0 to 3 months. Stability cash. Buffer money, 3 to 12 months, prevents panic and forced selling. Growth money, long-term compounding assets. Why? Because without a buffer, a small emergency forces you to sell at the worst time. Here's the flywheel in one line. Increase income, protect the gap, automate contributions, compound safely, repeat. That repetition is the secret, not intelligence, repetition. Now let's make it concrete with a few real-world paths. I'll show you 3 paths, not to promise outcomes, but to show what changes the timeline. Path A, fast, high gap, large income or rapidly rising income, low fixed costs, automated saving, consistent investing. In this path, 100K can arrive in 1 to 3 years. Path B, medium, moderate gap, stable income, some fixed costs but controlled, steady automation. 100K can arrive in 3 to 6 years. Path C, slow, small gap, income is capped, fixed costs are high, saving is inconsistent. This path can take 7 to 10 plus years, or never, if the system resets. What determines which path you're on? Not motivation. One number, your monthly investable gap. That's why the flywheel starts with the gap. In part 4, we're going to run a simple timeline model. You'll plug in your gap and see what path you're on. Then I'll show you the trap zone, why people often self-sabotage at 70 to 90% progress. Lifestyle, reward, spending risky catch-up moves, losing patience, and the psychology of I deserve it. Because the final stretch to 100K is not a math problem. It's a behavioral problem. Now we make this practical. If you can estimate your timeline, you stop fantasizing and start executing. But remember the Soros principle, fallibility. Your numbers will never be perfect. So we don't build a fragile plan that only works if life behaves. We build a plan with margin, then we execute. Let's run the timeline model. You need just 2 numbers, your current saved amount, S, your monthly investable gap, G. What you can reliably save invest each month after reality. Then, months to 100K, well 100,000 minus S or G. That's the skeleton. Now to respect fallibility, we apply the reality haircut. Because you won't invest perfectly every month. Emergencies happen, life happens, mistakes happen. So we reduce the gap by a safety factor. The reality haircut conservative, G of 0.75, moderate, G of 0.85, aggressive, G of 0.95. Most people should use 0.85. So your real investable gap is G real, G of 0.85. Then months to 100,000 minus S for a G real. This model ignores returns on purpose, because until you're near 100K, contributions often dominate. Returns matter, but they're not the main lever early. The main lever is G real. Pause and do it. Write S equals your current savings investments. Write G equals how much you can save per month. Multiply G by 0.85, plug in the formula. Then answer, is my timeline acceptable? If yes, execute and protect the flywheel. If no, you don't need motivation, you need a lever. And the lever is always one of these. Increase income, input, reduce fixed costs, gap, improve capture and automation, consistency. If you want to shorten the timeline, here are the most powerful moves in order. Lever number 1, increase income without increasing fixed costs. A raise that turns into a bigger apartment is not a raise. It's a lifestyle upgrade. But a raise that goes into the wealth account is a timeline weapon. Lever number 2, reduce one major fixed cost. Housing, transportation, debt payments. Not everything at once, one big move. Lever 3, automation. Inconsistent saving adds years. Automation makes you consistent. Lever number 4, stop status leaks. Not because you should suffer, because status spending is endless and unsatisfying. Cut the leaks that don't make you happier. Now we enter the most dangerous part of the journey. Most people don't fail early. Early on, they're hungry, they're focused, they're disciplined. They fail when they're close. Between 70K and 90K, something changes. They start to feel safe. They start to feel ahead. They start to believe the hard part is over, and that belief changes behavior. Reflexivity. Here are the 4 trap patterns. They hit 70K and decide to reward themselves. New apartment, new car, new lifestyle. The reward becomes permanent fixed cost. Now the gap collapses. The flywheel slows, and the final stretch becomes years. This trap is subtle because it feels reasonable, but it's the wrong time. Here's the rule. Reward yourself with experiences, not obligations. Experiences end, obligations follow you. They're close, so they try to speed it up. They chase a hot asset. They concentrate. They use leverage. They confuse confidence with edge. Then a drawdown hits and they lose. money, time, and more importantly, belief in the system. The irony is brutal. They were already winning. They just couldn't tolerate slow success. Here's the rule. Don't risk the flywheel for a shortcut. The first 100K is a system-building phase, not a genius phase. As the goal gets closer, the process becomes repetitive. Saving feels boring. Investing feels boring. So people drift. They skip months. They stop tracking. They stop automating. And because compounding is a flywheel, small lapses create big delays. Here's the rule. Boredom is the price of financial freedom. If you can tolerate boredom, you win. As you build savings, you may start to feel different from people around you. They spend freely. They upgrade constantly. They joke about money. You start to feel pressure to prove you're doing well, so you spend to fit in. This is the deepest trap. Social belonging versus financial future. Here's the rule. Your future self must matter more than the crowd. When you reach 50K, 70K, 90K, you need a defensive move. A professional doesn't just build gains. A professional protects them. Here are 3 lock-in tactics. 1. Raise your automation rate. When your income increases, increase automatic transfers first. 2. Make the money harder to touch. Separate accounts, fewer logins, friction. Not because you're weak, because you're human. 3. Build a no big decisions rule. No major purchases, no big strategy changes, no risky bets for 90 days. If you want to upgrade your life, wait until after you hit 100K and stabilize it. In Part 5 final, we'll do 2 things. A clear 30 to 60 90-day plan to reach 100K faster without self-destruction. The aftershock. What to do immediately after hitting 100K, so it truly changes your life. How to allocate it, how to protect it, and how to turn it into the next flywheel toward $1 million. Because the biggest mistake is hitting 100K and then sliding back. We're not here to touch the milestone. We're here to keep it. Now we finish this properly, because a milestone without a plan is just a photo, and a plan without protection is just a wish. In this final part, I'll give you a 30 to 60 90-day plan to move faster toward $100, a post-$100 protocol, how to lock it in so it truly changes your life. And the final lesson, why this milestone is the gateway to optionality, not a finish line. Let's go. Your goal is not to feel motivated. Your goal is to build a system that works even when you're tired. So this plan is designed for real life. If you don't measure it, you can't improve it. Step 1. Track 4 numbers weekly, 10 minutes. Income spending gap, income minus spending. Total saved, invested. No fancy tools needed, just consistency. Step 2. Set up the 3-account system, bills, spending, wealth. Then automate this rule. On payday, money goes to wealth first, even if it's small, especially if it's small. Step 3. 1 big leak decision. Choose one. Reduce a fixed cost, housing, transport, refinance, or attack high-interest debt. Remove an expensive recurring habit, renegotiate a bill. This single move can add $200, $800 a month to your gap, which can cut years off your timeline. Your assignment for day 30, increase your investable gap by 10%. Not by pain, by design. This is where most people fail. They save well, then an emergency hits, and they drain the progress. So in days 3160, you build defense. Step 1. Build now money. Aim for 1 to 3 months of essential expenses. This prevents small shocks from destroying your plan. Step 2. Build storm money. Keep adding toward 12 months over time. This is what prevents forced selling and panic. Step 3. Write your 10-line crash plan. When income drops or expenses spike, what happens? Example, cut subscriptions. Reduce discretionary spending, X%. Pause large purchases. Use buffer for essentials only. Maintain sleep and routine. No risky bets, no catch-up. Trades, a written plan beats emotional decisions. Your assignment for day 60. Have at least 1 month of essential buffer and a written crash plan. Now we widen the gap from the income side, without inflating lifestyle. Choose one path. Ask for a raise, negotiate. Change company role. Build a side offer, a simple service. Build a proof portfolio for higher paying work. The minimum effective dose, 4 to 6 hours per week, 1 proof output per week, portfolio piece, case study, pitch, outreach. 1 feedback loop per week, mentor, client, recruiter, market test. Your assignment for day 90, create at least 1 new income opportunity, raise, job pipeline, side client, or a repeatable offer. Now the part nobody talks about. Hitting 100K is not the end. It's the beginning of a new phase. And most people destroy the milestone because they treat it like permission. They say, I made it, now I can relax. Then lifestyle expands, the gap shrinks, the flywheel stalls. So here is the post 100K protocol. Simple, strict, effective. The first thing you do after hitting 100K is nothing dramatic. Wait 90 days. Let the identity settle. Because the danger zone is emotional. Pride relief, I deserve it, spending risky bets. Professional rule, do not change your life immediately after a major milestone. Stability first. This creates psychological safety. Layer A, safety core, cash buffer. Layer B, stability, medium-term needs. Layer C, long-term compounding. The exact percentages depend on your situation, but the principle is universal. If you don't feel safe, you will make bad decisions. Safety protects compounding. Freedom upgrades, emergency buffer, buff debt reduction, skill investment, health routines, relocation, flexibility, career optionality. Status upgrades, fixed cost upgrades, expensive obligations, upgrades to impress. $100 should buy you freedom, not a higher cost cage. Once you reach 100K, increase automatic contributions by a small amount. Not dramatic, sustainable, because the whole point is to keep the flywheel spinning. This is what happens after you lock in the milestone. You negotiate differently. You stop begging. You start choosing. You invest differently. You stop chasing excitement. You build systems. You work differently. You choose projects with upside, not just survival. You think differently. You stop believing money is always fragile. And that change compounds into everything else. This is why I called $100 a regime change. Your life stops being controlled by emergencies. Your choices become strategic. And when your choices become strategic, your future changes quickly. Let me give you a final professional principle. Optionality is more valuable than forecasting. Most people try to predict their way into wealth. Timing markets, picking perfect assets, chasing narratives. Professionals build optionality, buffers, diversified compounding income expansion systems that survive uncertainty, because the future will surprise you. And the only reliable defense is a life with margin. That's fallibility. We accept we can be wrong, so we build a structure that survives being wrong. So, save your first $100,000. It will change your life. Not because it's a magical amount, but because it proves you can run a system. Increasing input, protecting the gap, compounding safely, and avoiding self-sabotage. And once you have a working system, the rest is repetition.